If you are an entrepreneur, then most likely you've experienced various different kinds of anxiety around money. And chances are this was something that you weren't expecting to happen. I certainly wasn't. When I first got started online, I remember thinking, well, if I can just make this much money, then everything will be fine. But the way it panned out was very different. I discovered that the more money that I made, the more anxiety I had. And I later realized that the reason that happens is because all that money does, all that more money does, is amplify whatever existing feelings or beliefs you have around money. And I, growing up, not having much money at all, had a real scarcity mindset around money. So as soon as I started my business, became successful and got more money, all that did was amplify the scarcity mindset, which created all kinds of different kinds of anxiety that I had to contend with in the business. And I know from mentoring many other entrepreneurs that I am not the only person that struggles with this. And so what I'm going to show you today is the pretty straightforward framework that I use to try to achieve financial zen. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I've reached enlightenment here by any stretch, but I'm certainly a lot better than I used to be. And I think it's because now I have systems, beliefs, and understandings around money, how I use money, how I think about money, which has helped me in turn just become a lot bolder and a lot more at ease with myself and how I think about and manage money. So I hope this is going to help you. And this is actually pretty simple. A lot of this stuff you will have heard before in other places, but I found that I've always been surprised by the number of people that I have worked with, people that are kind of in my orbit, who also experience real anxieties around money. And I found that this helps. So here it is. First of all, here are some of the signs that tend to be the canary in the coal mine when it comes to financial anxiety. Entrepreneurs will do these kind of things, and this is a signal that all is not necessarily well. First of all is bank balance management, which I did in all its glory for many, many years. And this is where you make financial decisions based on however much money is in your bank account. And that is not the best way to manage things at all, because when you have less money, you will stop investing, and when you have more money, you will invest. But of course, however much money is in your bank account at any one time is not a true representation of the health of your business. Your bank balance lies to you. It doesn't show trends of any kind at all. It doesn't show any liabilities you may have around tax or what have you. And so if you find yourself making business decisions based on whatever is in your bank account, then you are most likely doing bank balance management. Hoarding cash is another thing. So earlier on I mentioned this scarcity mindset that I grew up with around money. So what do you do when you first start making money? Well, you hoard cash. I have a friend I spoke to recently who told me he has over $1 million in cash sitting in his business bank account. This is known as hoarding cash. And of course, all that that's doing there, the money, as you let money build up, all it does is get eroded by inflation, but also money needs to flow. Money is like energy. It needs to flow from one place to the other in order to grow, in order to do good work. And the more you hoard cash, the more it becomes this sort of huge center of gravity in your life. And then you can start to get anxiety around making the right decisions about what to do with it. Hoarding cash. Anxiety, pretty straightforward. If you feel anxiety of any kind, if you kind of wake up thinking, I don't know how much money I have, I don't have a great handle of my finances, that's a pretty straightforward signal. Personal withdrawals as well. I know a lot of people who get money coming into the business, and what they tend to do rather than reinvesting that money and making it work harder is they tend to withdraw it all personally by real estate, stocks and shares, things like that. And it's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, except that whenever you take money out of the business, you have to pay obviously corporation tax on the profit, and then if you're in the UK, you're paying higher rate dividend tax. That's 38.5% personal tax on top of that. So whenever you do take money out of the business, the amount of money that you can actually get is diminishing by over 50% net. And so it's a very, very inefficient way of doing things. If you think that money put back into the business accrues no tax whatsoever, because it's reinvesting profits. Lastly, lifestyle upgrades. And I'm sure everyone watching this has done this to some extent. I certainly have. This is where you buy the bigger house, you buy the bigger car, maybe you put the kids in private school. Before you know it, your monthly expenditure increases over and over. And then you start to realize then that you need the business to keep performing just so that you can maintain your lifestyle. This is Entrepreneur's Journey 101. So any of these things, if you find yourself doing these, if you kind of recognize this in yourself, this is, again, it's not necessarily that any one of these things are bad, but they tend to be signals of poor money management systems. So what do you do? Let me show you how I approach this. And the aim that we want to do here, the place we want to get to, is to get you to a place where you can run your business from a place of abundance, so that you're not waking up in the morning thinking about money, worrying about what to do with it, but rather you can invest and reinvest wholeheartedly inside your business in order to get do more of what you're good at. You're an entrepreneur for a reason, not to pay tax. The reason you're an entrepreneur is to build and create value in the world. And so we want to be able to do this from a place of abundance, not from a place of anxiety or scarcity. I think it's straightforward to get here, and here's how we do it. There are two elements to it. You've got the business side of it and the personal side of it, and these two things need to be in harmony in order to work properly. Now, there are two steps. One must come first, the other must come second, in my opinion. So here are those steps. So first of all, on the business side of things, you want to make sure that you have at least 6 months of operating expenditure set aside. So this is, imagine that all of your a COVID-like event happens, you lose 70-80% of your income overnight. You want to make it so that you've got at least 6 months of cash, so that the business can continue doing exactly what it's doing for 6 months, and you've got the cash to bankroll that. Many companies keep more than that. Apparently, I heard once that Microsoft keeps 12 months. Don't know if that's true. Many sort of high growth startups keep like 1 month or less. But for me, a minimum of 6 months cash is required. And what that does is it makes it so that you have no worries about reinvesting money, because even in like the most calamitous scenario, you've still got 6 months of cash to tide everybody over. You don't have to fire anybody. You can keep taking money yourself, and you've got 6 months to figure out how to solve the situation. All right, so this effectively removes all but the worst kind of risk from, it removes it from the table. And you want to take that cash, put it in a separate bank account that you don't see every day. You know it's there, but you're not going to touch it. And then the other thing that I'd like to do is to have a tax contingency account. So what we do on a monthly basis is we figure out, okay, what was our net profit from the month? What do we have to set aside for sales tax? What do we have to set aside for corporation tax? I have another bank account where we take money each month and put it into that account. So we know that once a year when that corporation tax bill comes, and it's a large amount, the cash is already there waiting for it. Okay, so this means that you have not only all of your tax liability taken care of at source, but you've also got enough business cash so that in all but the worst case scenario, you're always going to be okay. That's step one. This allows you then to reinvest in your business from a place of abundance. That takes time to build up. Okay, you're going to have to figure out what your monthly expenses are. This is people, this is software, this is professional fees, whatever it may be. You've got to work out what your business costs, your business overhead is every month, work it out, work out what 6 months of those expenses are, and then work at it and get it into a separate account. This might take quite some time to do, but it's worth it because it just gets you to that place of stability. Once the business is taken care of, and we start with the business because the business is your cash cow, once that's taken care of, then we move over to the personal side. I mean, because if your personal finances aren't in a good place, you can't continue to run the business properly because you've got anxiety over on the personal side. So we take care of the business first, and then we move on to personal. Now, on the personal side, you want to have 12 months of living expenses, again, in cash, set aside. Some people do 6 months, some people do 12 months, doesn't matter. The point is that by doing this, we make it so that even if you had a calamitous event in your business and the 6 months of cash you have in your business were not enough to figure out how to solve the problem, and so you go out of business, even after that happens, you still have 12 months living expenses personally set aside in order to figure out your life stuff. In that time, well, there's so many things you could do. You could downsize your home, you could get another job, you could what this does is it removes fear and anxiety from the equation completely. Right? Now, living expenses means everything it takes to maintain your lifestyle. Mortgage, school fees, car payments, food bills, everything. You work out what your monthly expenses are and you get 12 months living expenses. You keep it in a cash account so that you can access it. Ideally, you probably want to find it as high interest an account as possible. But remember, like, this is going to be the time that you need this cash is in the most extreme of events, and so you don't really want it tied up in some illiquid asset. I would keep it in a cash account where you can get a really good rate of interest and keep it there. Now again, this is going to take quite some time to build up because obviously in order to withdraw this money to have personally, you have to earn the profit in the business, you have to pay corporation tax on that, you have to pay the personal tax to withdraw it and let that build up. So all in all, this could take a couple of years or even longer to build up. But once it's there, you can see the level of security that you're going to feel on a daily basis. The other thing that I like to do is to max out annual tax breaks. Now, these are different from country to country. In the UK, there are some interesting tax breaks. So, for example, a limited company can pay a director's pension out of company profits, which is a taxable business expense, treated as a business expense. We also have personally what are called ISAs, is a tax-free savings account. So you pay the tax on the front end, but then everything you ever earn from that savings account is treated as tax-free. So these are annual tax breaks. It works out to be about 60 grand's worth of tax breaks. And you could argue, well, that money is better reinvested in the business. But what I find personally is that by maxing these out every year, it just puts me in a mental situation where I know that whatever happens with the business, even if the business were to suffer from all these calamities, I'm still actually building up something on the personal side. And again, it just helps to create that feeling of zen. So overall, what you got here is a real rock solid financial foundation for the business, and then the same thing on the personal side. So you'd have to think, in order for you to rinse through the business operating expenses that you've got saved up and your 12 months of living expense, it would have to be a pretty terrible situation. So the purpose of all of this is to remove the kind of real fear and worry around finances. And then once you've got that, well, what do you do with it? Well, this allows you then to think, well, what are the things that I really could invest into via the business from a state of real abundance? And those are, quite simply, well, reinvest into the business itself, whether that's hiring, whether that's capital investment, whatever it may be. Learning, one of the things I always do is invest in very expensive mentors so that I can just learn faster than I currently am. Learning is one of the best things you can ever invest into, but it's often quite expensive. And then investing, you might take business cash and invest into other peripheral investments, if that's part of your strategy. All of these things you can genuinely only do if you feel like you have a very solid financial cushion from which to do them. And that's the purpose of all of this. So I hope this was helpful. If you'd like to join my newsletter where I write about these things on a weekly basis, go to ollyrichards.co, and there you will get a 117-page case study of how I built my online education business, including a whole bunch of stuff on finance. Hope this was useful for you.